everyone, Jessica Pock from Mirror Lake. Thanks for joining us. Today I have a few different skills I want to work on with you. Are you ready to join? Awesome. Let's get started. All right, let's get started on our first skill. The target says, go ahead and read that with me. I will look for 3-letter blends while reading. And I notice that I have up here already some blends. Obviously, if you read these are not words, but they're just blends. Let's make the sounds together. The first one, ready? Str, str. Then the next one, skr, skr. And then spr, spr. Whoa. And that sounds silly saying just those blends. But when those 3 letters are put together, let's try and think of some words that start with st, r, str. Can you think of any? How about the word? See if we're thinking the same thing. String. Did you think of that one? Does that work? Hey, it has a 3-letter blend right at the beginning, right there. How about, this is something I do in the morning with my arms, and I yawn and give a big, did you guess it? Stretch. There's that STR right at the beginning. Let's move on to SCR, that 3-letter blend. I know if I have something itchy, I want to give it a, did you guess it? Scratch. Or if I scared my big sister, she gave out a big, did you guess it? Scream. Don't do that. That's not very nice. But there's that SCR 3-letter blend there. And then let's do one for this one. SPR, spr. Can you think of words that start with spr? I'm thinking of a season. Did you think of it too? I got spring. There's that SPR right at the beginning. And that's great. There could be way more that you thought of, I'm sure, that might have been the same as me or different than me, and that's okay. But we want to look for those 3-letter blends when we're reading. Let's take a look at this now. This might look familiar to you guys. This was in our ERLA that we did. It's a toolkit lesson. Some of you might say, hey, I remember doing that with my teacher. So here's the different 3-letter blends on this left side over here. We only did a few of those, but let's go ahead and read these. Str, scr, spr, shra, squa, sk, and thr. That's even tricky for me to say on its own, but taking a look at those at the very beginning of the words and paying attention to that. So yesterday we read a baseball book if you were joining us, and then this one is awesome just like that. So this is called Spring Training, and it's also about baseball. So this is kind of like you're filling in. I see a bank of words down here that all have those 3-letter blends. Some of them, they're all different actually, except for the str here and the str here. But now we want to fill these in so that it makes sense. So let's go ahead and read this together. Ready? Last year, I wanted to play for my blanks baseball team. But I was so small that my friends called me a blank, and I could not blank very far or run very fast. Notice how I'm just reading it just to see what the whole text is like. So I got a coach to help me get blank. Every day I ran blank. I did push-ups to build blank in my arms. At the end of my training, I was stronger and faster than ever before. Now I am a real blank on the field. All right, so we have an idea of what the text says. Now our job is to fill in one of these words for each of the blanks. Let's go ahead and start at the beginning. Last year, I wanted to play for my blanks baseball team. And sometimes maybe this is your first time doing something like this, I like to just look at the bank of words and maybe go in order and then plug it in here. So last year I wanted to play for my Strongers baseball team. Does that fit and make sense? I don't think so either. So I know it wasn't stronger. Let's try school. Last year, I wanted to play for my school's baseball team. Hey, does that fit? That sounded correct to me too. If you were to write this or had a paper or pencil, you could fill that word right in, and then I would probably cross it off. If you can see my mouse right now, I'm crossing it off in my head. So I know I don't need to use that word anymore. I already filled it in right here. And that has a 3-letter blend, SCH. But I was so small that my friends called me a blank, and I could not blank very far or run very fast. Ooh, there's 2 blanks in that one sentence. So let's start with the first one. But I was so small that my friends called me a blank. Let's just plug some words in and see what fits. Maybe you already know, but let's just test it out. But I was so small that my friends called me a stronger. Does that fit? I don't think so. Or, but I was so small that my friends called me a school. That's kind of silly. That doesn't make sense to me. Let's try a different one. But I was so small that my friends called me a strength. Does that make sense? But I was so small that my friends called me a shrimp. Hey, that SHR, that makes a shr sound. And I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. I know shrimp is kind of small, and I've heard that used before. Shrimp is not a very nice name to make fun of someone who is small. And I could not blank very far or run very fast. And I could not sprint very far or run very fast. That doesn't fit right there. That doesn't sound right. Notice as I'm reading this, I'm also reading the whole sentence over again instead of just plugging in a word. So I have shrimp up here, and I would cross that off if I had a pencil. And I could not, let's try, throw very far or run very fast. Does that fit? That sounds like it fits to me. So I'm going to recap real quick. But I was so small that my friends called me a shrimp, and I could not throw very far or run very fast. So I got a coach to help me get blank. Let's again try different words. So I got a coach to help me get threat. Does that fit? No. So I got a coach to help me get school. What? That doesn't make sense. So I got a coach to help me get stronger. Awesome. You got it. STR. I could hear you guys telling me, Miss Pocket, stronger. Awesome. Every day I ran blank. And if you're not sure about that one, sprints is something you go when you go back and forth and you have to run for those. So every day I ran sprints. Again, we can go ahead and fill in that word there. If we had a pen or pencil, I would cross that off. And I ran sprints, and there's that SPR blend. I did push-ups to build blank in my arms. I know this one. I did push-ups to build school in my arms. That makes sense, right? No, just kidding. I did push-ups to build what? Strength in my arms. You're right. I was just being silly there, but it is okay to test out different words again if you're not sure. And there's that STR blend. At the end of my training, I was stronger and faster than ever before. Hey, I noticed a STR right there. Now I am a real blank on the field. Now I am a real threat on the field. There's that THR 3-letter blend. Now, we used all the words in here. That was kind of fun. Thanks for doing that with me. And now we can take a look at, so we just go back to our target on what we were doing. We looked for 3-letter blends while reading. Did we find them? We totally did, and we used what they had. So here's what the final paragraph would look like. I bolded the 3-letter blend words that we found together. Go ahead and read that with me. Are you ready? Spring training. There's an SPR 3-letter blend. Last year, I wanted to play for my school's baseball team, but I was so small that my friends called me a shrimp, and I could not throw very far or run very fast. So I got a coach to help me get strength. Every day I ran sprints. I did push-ups to build strength in my arms. At the end of my training, I was stronger and faster than ever before. Now I am a real threat on the field. Whoops, Miss Pak filed. That doesn't make sense. So now we went ahead and did all the 3-letter blends. Nice job doing that skill with me. I told you we were going to do a mix of skills today. Are you ready for the next part? You better have said yes. Just teasing. All right, here we go. I'm going to figure this out soon, I promise. Are you ready to read it? Sorry, guys. All right, here's our target now. I will use strategies to help me understand a text. Okay, so the 2 skills I'm going to focus on for today is context clues. That means looking at different clues within the text, and then taking a look at similes, which is comparing 2 things using the word like or as. How many of you have heard that phrase, I'm as hungry as a... Some people say horse or hippo or cow. That does not mean you're a cow or a hippo, but that means you're as hungry and you could eat that much because you're so hungry. Miss Pak talks about food a lot. And then how about the word like? So I'm fast like a... If you said cheetah or tiger or something like that, you're comparing yourself and how quick you are to that animal. So I have a couple different skills. Let's take a look at the context clues that we're going to be looking at. Here's what it means if you haven't heard that term before. So when you're reading a book, you would look around the word or read the sentences before and after to help you figure out a word. I know sometimes even when I'm reading as an adult and a teacher, there are so many words that I don't know. But one thing I do is I look for context clues when I'm reading. And sometimes that gives you clues. The author will put that in there for you to decide, to help you think about what that word means. So we want to first identify the word and understand, hey, that's a word I'm not sure of. And that's okay. That's the first step of being a great reader. Instead of just saying, yep, I know all the words, I know it all. Nobody knows it all. And then the next strategy you could use is replace the unknown word with a guess or synonym, which is a word that means the same thing, and see if it makes sense. I like to call that plug it in strategy, and I use the plug it in, like you're plugging something in to the charger or the computer. And you read that sentence using that different word. And sometimes that helps too. But then you have to reread it and see if that makes sense. Let's take a look at some examples. So here's an example. Mrs. Saber is an affable principal. She is easy to approach and is always kind. The first thing good readers do is acknowledge and say, hey, is there a word on here that you're not sure of? I wonder if you chose the same one as I did. And that's okay if there's more than one word you don't know. But one I see is the word affable. What does that mean? So we're going to use, again, the context clues. That means we need to look around the word, read the sentences before and after. This one, unfortunately, was the only had one sentence. So let's use the second strategy. Replace the unknown word with a guess or synonym and see if it makes sense. So let's plug in a different word. Let's just say, I don't know, affable sounds like laughable, so she laughs a lot. Let's try that word. Mrs. Saber is a laughing principal. She is easy to approach and is always kind. Does that fit? Does that make sense? So we can't always guess, and it's okay to say, hey, I made a guess, but it doesn't really make sense. So let's use the clues. Let's see if there's clues. Mrs. Saber is an affable principal. Was there any clue in there for us? Not in that first sentence. Let's take a look at the second sentence. She is easy to approach and is always kind. Easy to approach means I'm not scared to go and talk to her. And I know there are a lot of students who can easily come up to her and give her a hug pre-COVID. And she's just always welcoming. So that kind of gives me a clue. I'm thinking about, she's easy to go up to and talk to and is always kind. So what word could we plug in instead of the word affable? What's a synonym for affable? Think about that for a second. And it doesn't always have to fit, because I noticed that "and" means there has to be a vowel at the beginning. But I'm thinking, did you think of something as the word along the lines of the word nice or friendly? Let's try and plug that in and see if the whole thing makes sense. Mrs. Saber is a nice principal. She is easy to approach and is always kind. Hey, does that sentence make sense with the word nice in it? It did to me. Or let's try friendly. Mrs. Saber is a friendly principal. She is easy to approach and is always kind. Did that fit? Awesome. So I'm thinking in my head, affable sounds like a good thing to me. So I'm going to put that it means friendly. Notice that we plugged in that word. That means we plugged in a synonym. These two means the same thing. It's just different words. So I'm going to read that one more time. Read that with me. Mrs. Saber is a friendly principal. She is easy to approach and is always kind. Awesome job. We just used a strategy to figure out a new vocabulary word. If you didn't join us yesterday, I have a quick summary, which we already did yesterday, thanks to those who did that with me, about Roberto Clemente, Pride of the Pittsburgh Pirates by Jonah Winter. So I'm not going to read the whole thing again, but here's a quick summary if you didn't get to hear the story. Roberto in Pittsburgh wanted to be treated like a regular baseball player, but newspaper writers weren't kind to him, so he didn't let that defeat him and continued playing. Let's use the text now. His first time at bat, he heard the announcer stumble through his Spanish name. Robert, Clement? It echoed in the near empty stands. Roberto Clemente was his name, and this is pronounced Roberto Clemente. As if to introduce himself, Roberto smacked the very first pitch. So I see a word up here that I'm not quite sure what it means. Did you find the same one as I did? I see the word stumble. Now, I always tell my students, just because you can read a word doesn't mean you always know what it means. So remember, good readers aren't like, I know all the words in the world. Good readers actually say, hey, I'm not quite sure what this word means. So his first time at bat, he heard the announcer stumble through his Spanish name, and then we see him stumbling here. That kind of gives me another clue. I've actually heard of the word stumble, but I thought it meant fell or falls. Does that fit? Let's plug it in. His first time at bat, he heard the announcer fall through his Spanish name. Robert, Toe? Does that really fit right there? Did he actually fall? Did the announcer fall down? I don't think so. But I'm thinking he was kind of struggling through that name. Would you agree with me? He could not pronounce that name. So I'm going to put he struggled. Let's try that and plug that in. Notice I'm also using the context clues, which are the sentences before, the sentence that the word is in, and the sentences after to help me. His first time at bat, he heard the announcer stumble or struggle through his Spanish name. Robert, Toe. And it does sound like a struggle. Nice job doing that with me. And then if you went back to our target here, let's try the simile, comparing two things using like or as. Tell me if you see it in here. But it went straight right up in the But it went right up, up the infield and into the second baseman's glove. Still, Roberto ran like lightning and beat the throw to first base. The Pittsburgh fans checked their scorecards. Who was this guy, Roberto Clemente? Did you see the simile? Are you pointing to it? There it is. It's the word like. So still, Roberto ran like lightning. What are they comparing? Are they saying he is lightning? He turned into a big lightning bolt? What? No. They're comparing two things. They're saying Roberto ran so fast like lightning. Nice job using those context clues strategies. That's something you can do at home when you're reading as well.
Hey friends, we're back. Today is our fourth and last day this week exploring division. This week we have been talking all about division, splitting up a total into equal groups. We looked at how to draw some pictures to match a division equation and help us solve it. We looked at and practiced how to use repeated subtraction, subtracting equal groups over and over again to solve a division equation. And yesterday we moved into using skip counting and counting by groups in order to solve a division equation. So today we're going to take those strategies we practiced and apply them to solving some word problems that are about real life situations where we might need to use division to solve or figure them out. So that's our plan for today. So hopefully by now we are experts on what it means to do division. What does division mean in math? But just to do a really quick review, we're taking a total of something and we're splitting it into smaller equal groups. So on this example here, if I had 8 stars total and I wanted to divide by 4, I could circle groups of 4. To show that I can make 2 equal groups of 4 if I have 8 to divide. So this is just a quick review of those 3 strategies for division that we've already looked at this week. So the first day we just talked about how we can draw a similar type of picture to the types of pictures we can draw to solve multiplication equations, where we're showing our equal groups, and we can even draw our groups in equal columns, lines going up and down, or rows, lines going across, to make an array. So this array we could use to solve 18 divided by 2. I just drew little columns with 2 in each column, and then I figured out how many columns of 2 I needed, and I ended up with 9 groups of 2. The other strategy we learned was how to do repeated subtraction. So with the same equation, starting with 18, which is the total, we could take away 2 and keep subtracting groups of 2 until we get to 0, and then we could count how many 2's did we subtract, and it would be 9. And then this is from our last strategy we went over, which is how to use skip counting. So in this case, we could count by 2's, right? Because we're dividing 18 by 2. And if we counted by 2's up until 18, this is what that would look like if we set our numbers, and we could use our fingers to keep track. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. And I would have 9 fingers up, so 9 groups of 2. Again, that would be our answer. This is just a quick review on all 3 strategies that we learned this week for division. As I mentioned today, we are taking all of those division strategies that we've been learning and practicing, and we are using them, at least one strategy that we learned this week, to solve a word problem, a story problem. So in this example, which I will do some modeling with, we have a word problem about friends sharing candy. So I will go ahead and read the problem. It says 4 friends are sharing some candies equally. There are 24 candies total. If each friend gets the same number of candies, how many candies does each friend get? Now, before I start thinking about which division strategy I want to use, I need to do some detective work and figure out what this problem is about. What am I trying to solve for or find out? And what information is important in the problem that I will need to think about and use in order to solve and get an answer. So, what I like to always do is read a story problem more than once, just so I can make sure I really feel like I understand what it's about. So, reading through it one more time, and this time I want to look for those important numbers and clue words that can help me think through this problem. So it says, 4 friends are sharing some candies equally. So I know that number 4 is important because that's how many friends are sharing the candy. And I know the word equally is important because that tells me that each of the friends should get the same amount of candies. Then it says there are 24 candies total. So the number 24 is important because that tells us how many candies there are altogether that the friends are sharing from. The word total is important because that's how I know that that is the whole amount of candies that they have to share from. So I know that's the number that we're splitting apart or breaking apart into equal groups. As I read on, it says, if each friend gets the same number of candies, how many candies does each friend get? And one really good thing to do when we're solving a story problem is to go ahead and look at the question that the problem's asking us and underline or mark it somehow so we remember what are we solving for? What will our answer represent? In this case, we have 24 candies that the 4 friends are equally sharing. So I know that my total is always that first number in my division equation that I'm splitting up. So I wrote 24. And then my division symbol here to show that we're dividing. I wrote divided by 4 because that's how many friends are sharing the candies. And then I want to put an equal sign because once I finish solving this problem, I should be able to figure out how many candies they will each get. So that is just a little help with how to start thinking through a story problem like this. One strategy I could use to solve this problem would be to use repeated subtraction. So if you look on my whiteboard here, that's what I have shown. I know that my total is what I always start with, what I start subtracting from. And I decided to subtract groups of 4 because that was our divisor, the number we're dividing by. And so I started by doing 24, take away 4. That got me to 20, take away 4 again. Let's circle our take away 4 so we can count them. When I did 20 minus 4, I got 16. Take another group of 4 away from 16, and I end up with 12. Take away another group of 4, then I have 8. Another group of 4 subtracted from 8, and my last group of 4 here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 4s that I had to subtract. Strategy I could use to solve this problem by using repeated subtraction and subtracting groups of 4 from 24 until I get to 0, and then counting how many 4s I had to subtract. Another strategy I could use if I wanted to would be drawing a picture of equal groups or drawing an array. First, I'll show you one way you could draw equal groups to solve this. I'm thinking about the 4 friends that are sharing the candies. So I could draw 4 big circles for my 4 groups. And I could give the candies away to each friend. So there's 4 candies that I gave away. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I'm going to keep going until I get all the way to the total, which is 24. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So using that strategy, if I did it correctly, I get the same answer that each friend would have 6 candies if they shared them, just by dealing the candies out and drawing an equal groups picture to show that. We move on to a new problem, and you get a chance to try applying some of these strategies on your own to solve a word problem. I wanted to show one more math picture that we talked about that you could use to help you solve this or to show what this problem could look like, and that is the array. So just want to demonstrate how we could do rows of 4. My rows are not perfectly straight. Add one here. And we have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So I add one more row of 4. And that should equal 24 altogether with 6 rows of 4 here. And I know my rows don't look perfectly straight, and that's okay as long as I can count and make sure that I do have these equal rows of 4 in each and that I have 6 rows. All right, now it's your turn to try. Are you ready to solve a division problem all on your own? Here we go. So now it's your turn. There is a word problem here on the screen for you to read, and I will read it aloud so you can hear it read. And you are just solving this division problem using one or more of the strategies that we learned and practiced this week. So go ahead and grab some paper and something to write with if you don't already have those tools. And now we're going to carefully read through this problem. Your job after we read this problem is to think about what numbers you're working with and thinking about and what your division equation would look like, and then pick a strategy and solve. So the problem here says there are 18 cards in a deck for a card game. 3 people are playing the game. Each person gets the same amount of cards. How many cards should each player get when all of the cards are dealt? And the word dealt just means when all of the cards are given out to the players. So, thinking about a card game where we're dealing out 18 cards to 3 people equally. Go ahead, think about what that important division equation is that we're solving here, and pick your strategy and go for it. Check in to see, did you figure out what your division equation should be to match this problem? Hopefully you were thinking about what numbers represent the total and the number of groups, or what we're dividing the total into. So in this problem, we have a total of 18 for how many cards there are. And we have 3 people or 3 groups that we're dividing the cards into. All right, before we go over the answer to that word problem, I just wanted to show a little demonstration so you could start thinking about how you did. So this is a deck with 18 cards altogether, and I'm going to deal them out for 3 players so that each player gets the same number of cards. So here are the cards for you to see again. And if we dealt 18 cards out to 3 different people equally, each person would end up with 6 cards. So check and see how you did on your work. Did you get that answer? And here on my whiteboard is just an example of how we could show our work with a picture of equal groups, and also how we could write our answer as a sentence in words. So it says each player gets 6 cards. Problem, the equation again, and this time an array that maybe you could draw if you were trying to figure out if you dealt 18 cards out to 3 players, how many cards would each player get? Here is a problem you can try for more practice at home on your own. And it's a story problem. And in this case, you can just choose your strategy and use whichever strategy you like best to solve. And one really great tip is if you use one strategy, you can use another strategy to check your answer. And if you get the same answer both ways, then that shows you probably did something right and you should feel good about it. So in this problem, it says you are baking cupcakes for your friends to share. You plan to bake 24 cupcakes. If 8 of your friends are sharing the cupcakes equally, how many cupcakes will each friend get? So think about which strategy you might want to use. And that's your problem, to have a little more practice with solving division word problems using the strategies we learned this week. Okay, I hope that word problem didn't make you too hungry for cupcakes, because now that's all I can think about. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, exploring how we can use different division strategies to solve word problems. And next week, we'll move into coming back to multiplication and thinking about how multiplication and division are connected and related to each other. And then also working on building our fluency with multiplication and division, being able to use those different strategies to solve different types of problems and equations. I'll see you next time. Thanks again.
Bueno, niñas y niños, soy yo, la maestra Lorena Vázquez, con ustedes una vez más. Hoy terminamos nuestras pláticas sobre la división de números enteros y como ya saben, hemos estado practicando en representar la división de diferentes maneras, incluyendo sustracción repetida, una matriz, grupos iguales, y hoy nuestro enfoque es la ecuación, cómo se ve un problema de división, y vamos a practicarlo a través de situaciones de la vida real, porque al final de cuentas, para eso practicamos las matemáticas, para poder resolver problemas de nuestra vida diaria de una manera práctica y eficiente. Así que si están listos, Vamos a comenzar. Bueno, niños y niñas, aquí estamos. Ayer, como bien saben, si nos estuvieron acompañando, estamos aprendiendo a dividir utilizando una matriz. Y para tener éxito, decidimos que necesitamos usar el divisor. Recuerden, divisor eran los grupos o las partes en donde íbamos a repartir las cantidades para repartir objetos en columnas y filas. Entonces, ayer estábamos practicando eso y si mal no recuerdo, les dejé un trabajito para poder intentar por sí mismos en casa o con sus seres queridos. Entonces, vamos a ver. Tenemos el primer problema que es 9 dividido en 3. 9 dividido por 3 y 3 es el divisor. Entonces, sabemos con este divisor que necesitamos 3 columnas. Y no sé si se han fijado, pero he tratado de usar el mismo color para que ustedes, mientras vayan aprendiendo, vayan coordinando y conectando cuál cantidad va en qué lugar. Así que vamos a empezar con el divisor de 3. Yo sé que teniendo estos balones de fútbol, voy a necesitar 1, 2 y 3. Aquí está. 1, 2, 3. 3 columnas, 3 grupos. Pero necesitamos saber la respuesta. ¿Cuántos van a haber en cada grupo? Vamos a suponer que haya unos niños que quieran jugar fútbol y tienen que llevar ciertos balones para practicar. ¿Cuántos balones le toca a cada grupo? Vamos a ver, tenemos que llegar a 9, solo hay 9 balones, entonces continuemos. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 y 9. Y me detengo aquí porque el dividendo o el total que yo tengo disponible es de 9. Entonces, si tengo yo 9 balones y tengo 1, 2, 3 grupos, en cada grupo hay 1, 2, 3. Así que yo ya sé que 9 dividido por 3 son 3. Y recuerdan que podemos representar esto de una manera simple sin dibujos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Aquí tenemos nuestros grupos. Un grupo, 2 grupos, 3 grupos. Así que si están viendo esto en casa, pueden intentar hacer un dibujo como este para poder representar 9 dividido por 3. Y así se pueden dar cuenta que en cada grupo hay 1, 2, 3. Entonces la respuesta es 3. Vamos a ver el segundo ejemplo que les dejé para practicar. Es 16 dividido por 4. 16 dividido por 4. Entonces tengo estas estrellitas aquí, vamos a hacerlo. 4 es el divisor y ya aprendimos el día de ayer que el divisor son los grupos o las partes en donde vamos a repartir las cosas. Entonces vamos a hacer 4 columnas, 3, 4. Y vamos a seguir contando estrellas hasta llegar a nuestro total o el dividendo que viene siendo 16. Así que 5, 6, 7, 8. Y recuerden que en una matriz es muy importante que las columnas y las filas estén rectas. Así, 4 y 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, seguimos, 13, 14, 15 y 16. Muy bien, aquí tenemos nuestra matriz de estrellas. Tenemos 4 columnas. 4 columnas, aquí están. 1, 2, 3 y 4. Y en cada columna tenemos 1, 2, 3, 4 estrellas. Entonces, 16 dividido por 4 son 4. Muy bien. Excelente. ¿Sacaron el mismo resultado que yo? Si es así, entonces muy bien. Quiere decir que están entendiendo cómo representar la división para poder resolver los problemas correctamente. Ahora, comencemos con la lección de hoy. Hoy estamos aprendiendo a resolver problemas matemáticos de la vida real. ¿Recuerdan que hicimos eso con la multiplicación la semana pasada? Pues vamos a hacerlo de nuevo con la división. Su trabajo es poder determinar el cociente, esa es una palabra nueva, ¿verdad? Y representar el problema con una ecuación de división. Ahora, ecuación. Ya sabemos que una ecuación es una que lleva el símbolo de igual, ¿verdad? Igualdad. Entonces, quiere decir que hay dos valores que tienen, que son de la misma cantidad. El cociente, esa es nuestra palabra del día. Cuando ustedes me escuchen decir cociente, ustedes tienen que saber que ese es el resultado. Así que cociente es la cantidad en cada grupo. ¿Bien? Entonces vamos a practicar. Cociente. Cociente, la cantidad que le toca a cada parte. Muy bien. Así les voy a seguir recordando durante la lección para que lo puedan practicar conmigo. Muy bien. Como siempre, materiales, lápiz, papel, pizarra con marcador, cualquier cosita que necesiten para practicar. Bueno, pues como siempre me gusta hacer un repaso de lo que ya hemos practicado. Entonces sabemos que la división es separar en grupos iguales, directamente lo inverso que la multiplicación, y implica sustracción repetida, grupos iguales, una matriz, y hoy nos vamos a enfocar en esta sección aquí que es la de la ecuación. Y ustedes pueden ver aquí con los colores cómo se relaciona con las matemáticas pueden ver cómo se relaciona con la multiplicación. A ver, entonces, si nuestro trabajo es determinar el cociente, la cantidad que le toca a cada parte. Primero tenemos que saber una situación matemática. Así que el primer problema que tenemos hoy es el siguiente. Don Ramón vende globos en el parque. ¿Han visto a un señor o una señora vender globos en el parque o en una feria? Él tiene 18 globos. Si 9 personas le compran todos los globos que tiene, ¿cuántos globos compraron cada una? Entonces vamos a poner atención a lo que es importante aquí. Aquí es importante que hay 9 personas que van a ir a comprar globos. Aquí están los globos. Y compraron todos los globos, así que no sobró ningún globo, ¿verdad? Y también lo demás que tenemos que saber es que él tiene 18 globos. ¿Cuántos globos compraron cada una? Aquí la palabra clave es cada una. Quiere decir que tenemos que saber cuál es la cantidad igual o el cociente, la cantidad que le toca a cada parte, que cada persona compró. Así que vamos a empezar a repartir equitativamente. Si yo sé que él tiene 18 globos, ese es mi dividendo. Perdón. Él tiene 18 globos, así que aquí voy a poner 18, si lo puedo dibujar bien. 18, ese es nuestro total, no hay más globos. ¿Y cuántos grupos, cuántas personas están comprando? Vamos a contarlos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 personas, así que ya sabemos que los grupos son 9. Pero no sabemos el cociente. Cociente, la cantidad que le toca a cada parte. Así es, no sabemos qué cantidad le toca a cada persona o a cada parte del grupo. Así que vamos a averiguar juntos. Si tenemos globos, son 9, vamos a empezar a repartir hasta llegar a 18. Recuerden, 18 es el total, así que no hay más globos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 y 18. Así que no nos podemos pasar de esa cantidad. En esta ocasión yo creo que voy a hacer tachas para representar los globos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hasta ahora todos tienen un globo y voy en 9. No he llegado hasta 18. Entonces debo de continuar y empiezo de nuevo desde el principio. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 y 18. Ahí puedo detenerme. ¿Qué les parece? Entonces, don Ramón está vendiendo sus globos muy feliz en el parque, tiene 18 globos y llegan estos 9 clientes, las personas que van a comprar, y le compran todos los globos, no le quedó ninguno. ¿Cuánto le tocó a cada persona? Ustedes saben que los grupos son estos, cada persona, son 9 grupos. ¿Y cuántos son en cada uno? Claro, si dijeron 2, acertaron. El cociente, la cantidad que le toca a cada parte. Muy bien, la cantidad que le toca a cada uno es 2. Así que 18 dividido por 9 es igual a 2. Y qué suerte tuvo don Ramón que vendió todos sus globos. Muy buen trabajo. Vamos a ver cómo pueden aplicarlo ustedes. Hay 2 maneras. Aquí yo tengo otra situación donde ustedes pueden representar en una ecuación la división. Vamos a leer el problema juntos porque recuerden, su trabajo es poder determinar el cociente al final. Quiere decir que queremos saber, tenemos una cantidad de algo y la vamos a repartir equitativamente y queremos saber cuánto le toca a cada uno. A ver, léanlo conmigo. A doña María le encanta hacer galletas para sus nietos. Un fin de semana ella horneó 24 galletas. ¿Cuántas galletas horneó doña María? Qué trabajadora. 24 galletas para sus 6 nietos. ¿Cuántos nietos? 6. Quiere decir que las galletas son para 6. ¿Será eso los grupos? 6 nietos. Si se comieron todas las galletas, ¿ya vieron esa palabra clave otra vez? Todas las galletas. ¿Cuántas galletas? Aquí está la pregunta. ¿Cuántas galletas se comió cada uno? Ahí está la palabra clave del cociente. Cada uno. Cociente. Cociente, la cantidad que le toca a cada parte. La cantidad que le toca a cada uno. Entonces, hay varias maneras. A mí me gusta siempre hacer un dibujo porque es una manera más fácil para mí de visualizar el problema. Así que yo voy a tomar la información que yo ya sé, empezando que doña María le encanta hacer galletas, pero hace 24 galletas. 24. Muy bien. Hace 24 galletas. Ese es nuestro total, el dividendo. ¿Y quién se va a comer todas esas galletas? Sus nietos. Entonces, ¿cuántos nietos tiene? Podemos ver aquí. Ella tiene 6 nietos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Así que muy bien, doña María tiene 6 nietos. Esos son los grupos o las personas, en este caso, que se van a repartir equitativamente todas esas deliciosas galletas. Y cada uno se va a comer ¿cuántas galletas? Ese es su trabajo averiguarlo. Lo vamos a repasar la semana que viene. Y un reto adicional para ustedes. ¿Pueden crear su propio problema de división? Me encantaría escuchar sus sugerencias, si las tienen, o compartan con alguien que esté en su hogar con ustedes, un ser querido. ¿Qué tantos problemas pueden crear? Bueno, muy bien. Hemos llegado al final de nuestra lección. Toda esta semana aprendimos mucho vocabulario, muchas nuevas cosas sobre la división. Aprendimos que el total se llama dividendo, que los grupos se llaman divisor. Y hoy aprendimos que la respuesta de un problema de división se llama cociente. Cociente, la cantidad que le toca a cada parte. Exacto, ¿qué cantidad le toca a cada grupo? Entonces, la semana que viene vamos a aprender más a fondo sobre esto de la multiplicación y división y vamos a ver qué nos toca. Propiedades de multiplicación. ¿Sabían que había más que aprender sobre esto? Muy bien. Y recuerden, mientras tanto, practiquen sus tablas de multiplicar y de división, porque es importante saberlas de memoria. Bueno, niños y niñas, gracias por acompañarme y hasta la próxima. Adiós.